All right. I think the combined hours of sleep of President Abbott and I might be about 8 for the last 2 nights. So I'll be looking forward to a great night's sleep this evening, no doubt. And thank you, Patty, for the kind words as well. I'm very excited. Like I said before, it's a great day for South Dakota athletics and for the whole university. I do want to say a few quick thank yous, mainly to my staff. You know, David Herbster, Jeanette Hubert, Jill Schleckaway, Emil Anderson for all his work, all of our coaches. You know, I've been present but not present for the last week, if you know what I mean, in my office, and so I really appreciate them picking up the slack and making sure that the office was being run and things were being handled. They've done a fabulous job through this, kind of keeping me informed and also keeping me balanced through this. I appreciate them. I also would be remiss if I did not thank President Abbott. He really was a steady hand through this process for me. I can tell you, I can see why he's been a successful businessman. He gave me some great advice along the way and really kind of helped. I think we counterbalance each other very well through this process, and I want to thank him for his patience with it. I know he has a university to run, so this was taking up a lot of his time, but it was an important decision for us, obviously. I want to thank Tom Duple as well in the Summit League. You know, Tom has been very open with me, and we've had some real good dialogue since I got here, and I want to send a quick shout out to him and a thank you to him for his efforts on our behalf and for taking the time to understand our situation and work with me on it. I also want to thank Ed Grom. You know, Ed Grom, the Commissioner of the Great West, and that's been our home for a while here. And although we knew we were transitioning into the Summit under the original plan, I will say as part of this process, I did work out with Ed that, you know, he was willing to let us play in the Great West next year if we needed to. And he didn't have to do that. But that was something I was doing to make sure I was covering our bases and making sure our teams had a home to play next year regardless of how this turned out. And Ed was very flexible and willing to talk about that, so I want to thank Commissioner Grom for his efforts. I also want to thank Doug Fullerton. You know, Doug and I had some really good conversations, and he's a real good leader, visionary. I enjoyed our discussions, and I just want to send a quick thank you to him. I did speak to him yesterday, and he took the news very well, and he's a true professional, and I want to thank Doug. And finally, of course, Patty. You know, Patty, like she said, it's amazing we just met today. Kind of feel like family member already. We've spent a lot of time on the phone together, and I said this consistently throughout the process. If you look back at everything I said, there had been no dialogue with the Valley going on. And at the same time, I will tell you that Patty always gave me honest answers and straight answers. For a while, I didn't like the answers, but they were the truth and they were honest, and I really appreciate her for that, because in this time of swirling conferences and allegiances and things, there's a lot of different things happening. So to get that kind of honest approach from Patty, I really appreciated it. Thank you. As for the press conference that I had back here in June, one of the stated goals I had was to get football home by 2012. So, you know, in one way I can kind of check that off the list. It's very exciting for us to make sure that football will be playing in 2012 in a conference that is a great fit for us and a great fit for our fan base. And I couldn't be more excited about it. You know, like I said, I've been here 3 months. It kind of feels like a year at this point in terms of the last 2 weeks and what they've added to my gray hair quotient on top of my head, which hasn't started yet, but it's getting close. I will say with Patty, you know, it was great that she allowed me to be pleasantly persistent, is how I like to call it, maybe. And, you know, taking this job, I didn't know Patty personally, but I knew people that had worked with her. Rick Greenspan, Rick Mello are 2 people that came to mind that I talked to about Patty, and they frankly said, you know, you'll like her, just call her. You don't need me to call and introduce you. Just go see her and just call her. She'll take your call and she'll be honest with you, and that's exactly what she was. So I'm glad I listened to my mentors. Those are obviously important people in my career, and they gave me good advice. So I thank them for that. You know, part of this process for me was tricky. A lot of people were saying, you know, just be patient for the Valley. They'll come around, they'll add you guys at some point. Maybe you got to be independent for a few years, but you'll get there. And I really struggled with that. I just thought to myself, to me, that's not an option. You know, I need to make sure that Ed and his program have a home in 2012. I'm a big believer in reading other people's you know, books and thoughts, and Mike Lombardi was a successful general manager in the NFL for a long time, and one of his famous phrases is never confuse hope for a plan. And that really stuck with me through this. I'm not going to sit around and wait and be independent and hope this works out. That was not an option to me, and was never going to be an option for us. And so that's really how I pursued this and how I looked at this. I was working hard constantly, as many of you know from my different press reports and different interviews I've done, that I was calling commissioners, I was calling ADs, I was gauging interest. All those things were happening, and they were all positive. It was good. It just didn't have a clear ending in sight, but it was all good for a long time. I wound up having very positive discussions with Doug, and he went ahead and offered us, and that was fantastic, and something we certainly looked at and considered very hard. And I want to thank all the ADs in the Summit League as well, because even after talking to Doug, I had to go to Summit League meetings in Indianapolis, and I will say that to an athletic director, they all came up to me at breaks and said they understood what I was going through. They'd kind of be going through the same thing if they were in my shoes. They kind of understood what we were facing. And so I want to thank all the athletic directors in the Summit for all of their patience with me as well through this process. Jim and I had so many discussions over the past 5 days. I'd be remiss if I didn't thank Colette, his beautiful wife, for allowing me to take up his time. I feel bad that I took him away from her for so long, but I thank her for her understanding. As far as the deadline and Patty meeting it, I was real impressed with Patty's professionalism and her enthusiasm. I want to make it very clear that this was a unanimous vote. There was interest across the Missouri Valley Football Conference for us entering the league, and that meant a lot to me. I didn't want it to be construed any other way. This was unanimous, and this was something that they wanted us, and it was very important that we knew that and understood that. So I thank her for passing that on to us. I said weeks ago in an interview that the Coyotes were on the radar here and we had some options, and I think I got some chuckles from some people about that. People didn't think that was true. I'm here to tell you it was very true. It was very real. There was even another scenario that was unfolding that could have had us in it. So we were in demand, we were being looked at, and that was important to me, and I want to make sure everyone here in this room, especially our athletic department, understands that we were in demand, and as proven, there was a couple offers for us, and that's a fantastic thing for us. At the end of the day, President Abbott and I kept coming back to one simple thing. This is what we all wanted 6 months ago. I wasn't here 6 months ago, but getting here, I knew this is what people wanted. And when this whole thing started, it was a combination of the Summit and the Valley in football. And we kept coming back to that. Slept on it for one more night, woke up and realized that this was just the better option for us. And we cemented it after sleeping and thinking about it. The Board of Regents were very supportive. I want to thank all of them. I know Jim spent a lot of time reaching out to the Board of Regents and discussing our different options and our different situations with them. They were very understanding and really left it up to Jim and I to make some decisions, and I thank them for their efforts. I think they all felt like we did, that closer opponents were important. Not having to worry about the buyout was certainly an important issue for us. The uncertainty of the WAC was a little bit troubling for us. We weren't real sure we could get a handle on what the WAC is or isn't going to do and how that was going to affect the Big Sky. So that certainly played into some of our thinking. I also think the Division I uncertainty is something that we thought about, and we kind of looked a little bit more longer term into what could happen in the scenario of private and public schools sharing a conference together, and how that could eventually change or shift or move. And the conclusion is that there will be some shifting and moving. We all know that. We're seeing that, right? It's present currently today. But I think it's important to tie yourselves to teams and universities that you are alike and you can kind of go somewhere together with. And usually when you do that geographically and locally, it makes a lot more sense. And so for us, for our future, 10, 20 years down the road, I think this move cements whatever might come down the road for us and really puts us in a better position for that time. And that was really important for us. And finally, really a guiding principle of mine when I took this job, I said it is, the student-athlete experience here at the University of South Dakota needs to be as good as it can possibly be. And every decision we make as administrators and coaches needs to be with that thought in mind. And what this move allows is it allows better travel for our student-athletes, less missed class time for our student-athletes. We have more cost-efficient travel that we can frankly use those dollars to go towards other things that are more important, scholarships, equipment, salaries for good coaches and staff. Those things are important, and we can now use some of that money. We could have made the travel work in the Big Sky. I know we could have. But I'm here to tell you that it's nice that we can actually use some of that money that we don't have to spend on travel and let it go somewhere else in our department that it's needed. So that's important. I also really took a strong belief that our Howling Pack numbers and our dollars are going to grow through this. It's something that our fans can really latch onto and understand what we're heading into and really get behind it. So that growth in the Howling Pack in terms of dollars and numbers is very important. And yes, I will be asking people for money here shortly. Not today, but in the near future, it will be coming because this is an important time for us. Also, the growth in ticket revenue. You know, just knowing that we're going to have those Missouri Valley football games at home every 2 years of all the different schools is very important to us in terms of growing our ticket revenue and our atmosphere in the Dome. And also, as another thing I stated at my press conference, a new arena is on the horizon for us. I'm committed to that project. It's where I'm going to put my heart and soul now that this matter's been kind of put to bed. And it's going to be the next thing on my list. And Jim is supportive of the project, and I thank him for that. And we're going to go guns blazing after it. And I really think that this move helps the concept of the arena along a lot quicker than any other move would have. I think it gives fans and our donors something tangible to think about and put their hands on and see why this is important for us now. We need more seats in the Dome. We need to do the arena for basketball and volleyball. So these are things that I think the project can help sell through this decision, and that was obviously a very important piece and factor in our decision. You know, the preparations are beginning right now as we speak, and finishing towards our Division I certification and entering into the Summit League next year and the Valley in football in 2012. You know, I want to take a minute and just think about the Northern Iowa game a month ago here at the Dome, less than a month ago. It was Pheasant opener, which I've learned is a tough one in terms of crowd. I did not know much about that coming in, but we had a great crowd, capacity crowd. There were even times the quarterback Northern Iowa had to check down because the Dome was too loud. You know, that's the kind of atmosphere I want everyone to think about for a minute. Now I want you to add in the conference championship hanging in the balance on that game and how important that would be. I want you to think about the Coyotes feeding off that energy as they play that game and really taking it to them and winning that game, and what kind of atmosphere that would be like in the Dome. The Dome will be louder than it's ever been, and this is a reality. This is going to be able to happen now, and I think that's real important. It kind of gives me chills thinking about that kind of a game. I want that kind of a game here in Vermillion, and it's going to happen. I know it is. So with that being said, I just want to say bring on 2012 in Missouri Valley football. Thank you.